The sterile scent of disinfectant still clung to my nostrils, a phantom odor that had permeated every breath of my waking nightmare. They called it a prison, but it was a tomb, a cold, unfeeling monument to a betrayal so profound it had warped the very fabric of my existence. For 2 long years, my name, Raine Alden, had been synonymous with fraud, embezzlement, and corporate espionage, crimes orchestrated by the one person I had loved, the man who had promised me forever, Luther Thorne. He had not merely framed me, he had meticulously dismantled my life, piece by agonizing piece, before walking away to marry his longtime lover, Serafina Hayes, a woman whose saccharine smile concealed a viper's venom. The memory was a festering wound, a constant, burning reminder of the naive fool I had been. But now it was different. The jarring clarity of the hospital room, the soft murmur of the nurses, the insistent beeping of the 4th drip, all faded into insignificance as the impossible truth solidified in my mind. I was back, not just out of prison, but reborn. My last memory was the agonizing, suffocating despair of my cell, and despair so deep it had felt like the end. Yet, here I was, staring at a calendar that screamed a date a full year before my arrest. My heart hammered against my ribs, a chaotic drum solo of disbelief and dawning, terrifying hope. A second chance, a brutal, beautiful gift from a fate I no longer trusted. It was as if the universe, in its infinite and often cruel wisdom, had decided to rewind time, granting me an opportunity not for simple escape, but for a meticulously planned, devastating retribution. The air tasted crisp, alive, a stark contrast to the stale, recycled air of my confinement. Every detail of the room, from the muted tones of the wallpaper to the precise fold of the bedsheets, registered with a heightened clarity, a testament to my reawakened senses. This wasn't a dream. This was reality, sharper and more vivid than anything I had experienced in my previous life. The mundane details of the hospital room, the distant sounds of city traffic filtering through the window, grounded me in a terrifying but exhilarating present. I ran a hand over my arm, feeling the smooth skin, unmarred by the subtle scars and rough patches that had become familiar in my confinement. This body, younger, healthier, felt like a vessel of immense potential, a blank slate for the new Raine to inscribe her will upon. The sensation was overwhelming, a tidal wave of emotions, but beneath the initial shock, a cold, calculated calm began to assert itself. There would be no more tears, no more desperate pleas for justice, only action. The first year of my reborn life was a carefully orchestrated masquerade, a delicate dance of deception. I resurrected the image of Raine Alden, the bright, trusting, slightly naive fiancée, the woman Luther had so effortlessly manipulated. This resurrected Raine was a meticulous construct, a performance honed through countless hours of quiet reflection and painful self-analysis. Every forced smile, every feigned blush, every whispered term of endearment to him felt like a corrosive acid on my tongue, but I swallowed it down, burying the bitter taste beneath layers of fabricated adoration. My touch, when I allowed him to hold my hand, was light, almost ethereal, masking the iron will and simmering rage that now coursed through my veins. I practiced in front of mirrors, meticulously perfecting the tilt of my head, the wide-eyed innocence that had been my undoing. I even revisited old photographs of myself, studying the genuine joy in my past eyes, striving to mimic that innocent spark, even as my soul churned with a dark purpose. This was my new role, and I would play it to perfection, a master actress on the grand stage of my revenge. The hardest part wasn't the deception itself, but the constant emotional dissonance, the battle between the facade I presented and the storm brewing within. Each saccharine word, each affectionate gesture, felt like a betrayal of my true self, a necessary evil in the pursuit of a larger, more satisfying justice. I paid careful attention to my vocal inflections, softening my tone, adding a touch of breathy admiration when speaking to Luther. I'd watch how my past self would react in various scenarios, piecing together the subtle nuances of her personality, becoming her, but with a sharpened mind and a hardened heart. The art of feigning ignorance became my greatest weapon. People tend to underestimate those they perceive as less intelligent, allowing them to reveal their true intentions. Luther, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath my placid surface, reveled in my supposed devotion. He saw my quiet demeanor as adoration, my thoughtful silences as deep affection. He believed he had found the perfect, pliable puppet, a woman easily discarded when her usefulness expired. He would often hold my hand, his thumb tracing lazy circles on my skin, his eyes gleaming with a possessive satisfaction that now sent shivers of disgust, not warmth, through me. He would speak of our future, of grand plans for our life together, all the while charting his schemes, unknowingly laying the groundwork for his own spectacular downfall. His words, once music to my ears, now sounded like the discordant notes of a doomed symphony. He spoke of building a legacy, of a sprawling estate we would one day share, of children with my eyes and his ambition. Each word was a twisted knife, reminding me of the beautiful lies he had woven, the future he had stolen. My memories were a cruel, vivid screenplay, constantly replaying the betrayals, the manipulations, and the smug smiles of him and Serafina. Each replay fueled my resolve, sharpening the edges of my burgeoning plan, turning my pain into a finely honed weapon. I observed his habits, his tells, the subtle shifts in his eyes when he was lying, the way he would nervously tap his fingers when a scheme was in its delicate phase. Every detail was noted, categorized, and stored for future use. I remembered his meticulous routines, his predictable lunch spots, even the casual comments he'd make about colleagues or rivals. These seemingly insignificant details became threads in the intricate tapestry of my investigation. My primary objective was clear: a crystal-cut diamond of intent, gather undeniable, irrefutable evidence of Luther's crimes. The original trial, a blur of forged documents and manufactured testimonies, had been a travesty of justice. This time, I wouldn't just defend myself, I would prosecute. I started small, subtly diverting copies of financial records, carefully making digital backups of emails that contained coded instructions, secretly recording hushed phone calls. My office, once a place of joy and creative energy, transformed into a clandestine intelligence hub. I learned to use my perceived naivete as a shield, deflecting suspicion, often feigning confusion, or asking seemingly innocent questions that inadvertently revealed crucial details. No one suspected the woman whose eyes sparkled with supposed love was, in fact, a meticulous architect of ruin. My evenings were spent hunched over a laptop, decoding encrypted files, cross-referencing names, and meticulously piecing together the fragmented puzzle of his deceit. I cultivated a network of seemingly innocuous contacts within the company, office gossips and disgruntled employees, who, with a few carefully placed questions, inadvertently provided crucial pieces of information. The thrill of each small victory, Each piece of evidence secured was a potent antidote to the lingering bitterness. It was a silent war, fought in the shadows of corporate offices and whispered conversations, and I was determined to win. I installed hidden cameras in obscure corners of the office, disguised as innocuous air fresheners or decorative plants, ensuring I captured candid interactions and crucial document handling. Each keystroke on my hidden laptop felt like a blow struck against him, each encrypted file secured, a small taste of freedom. The company, Ascendant Corp., was Luther's prized possession, the empire he had built on a foundation of illicit dealings and ruthless ambition. It was also, I realized, my ultimate weapon. I recalled snippets of conversations, fleeting glimpses of documents that detailed the precariousness of its financial structure, the house of cards it truly was. He relied heavily on a handful of key investors, powerful figures whose trust, if shaken, could bring the entire edifice crashing down. This would be my focus, the vital artery I would sever. I spent countless hours devouring financial reports, poring over legal precedents, and studying the intricacies of corporate law, transforming myself from a novice into a formidable opponent. My memories of the original fraud trial provided a blueprint, highlighting the loopholes and vulnerabilities that had allowed Luther to escape justice the first time. I would not make the same mistakes. My past failures became my most potent teachers, guiding my every calculated move. My mind, once consumed by plans for a wedding, now meticulously mapped out a path to corporate sabotage. I started researching Sebastian Vance, Luther's most formidable business rival. Sebastian was a ghost in the corporate world, known for his cutthroat tactics, his uncanny ability to dismantle empires, and his absolute, unyielding discretion. He operated in the shadows, an enigma whose name sent shivers through the boardrooms of the city. In my past life, I had only heard whispers of him, rumors of his cold ruthlessness, tales of companies crumbling under his silent assault. Now, he was my necessary evil, my potential ally in this desperate high-stakes game. The thought of approaching him filled me with a nervous thrill. He was a wild card, unpredictable and dangerous, but I needed fire to fight fire, and my own flames of vengeance were burning hotter than ever before. This was no longer just about survival. It was about absolute annihilation, leaving Luther with nothing, just as he had left me. I compiled a dossier on Vance, detailing his past successes, his rumored methods, his known associates. Understanding my potential ally, as much as my enemy, was paramount. The more I learned, the more I understood that he was not a man to be trifled with, but also a man who appreciated calculated risks and undeniable leverage. I would need to offer him something truly irresistible. The air in the exclusive Crimson Lotus restaurant was thick with the scent of aged leather and expensive liquor, a hushed reverence clinging to every polished surface. This was Sebastian Vance's preferred meeting place, a sanctuary for whispered deals and discreet power plays. My heart hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs, a nervous tremor that had nothing to do with the chill in the air and everything to do with the man across from me. He arrived precisely on time, a figure of understated power, his dark suit blending seamlessly with the muted elegance of the surroundings. Sebastian Vance was an enigma, shrouded in an almost tangible aura of cold, calculating power. His eyes, the color of storm-swept skies, held a chilling intensity that seemed to strip away all pretense, laying bare the truth. His movements were fluid, economical, a predator in a perfectly tailored suit. He listened more than he spoke, his silence more unnerving than any spoken threat. He simply observed, absorbing every flicker of my expression, every nuanced shift in my posture. I had rehearsed this conversation 100 times in my mind, every word meticulously chosen, every nuance practiced. But now, faced with his piercing gaze, my meticulously crafted script threatened to unravel. The sheer force of his presence was almost overwhelming, a stark contrast to Luther's superficial charm. "Miss Alden." His voice was a low, resonant rumble, smooth as polished obsidian, yet carrying an undercurrent of steel. It was a voice that commanded attention without raising its volume. "I confess I'm intrigued. To what do I owe the unexpected pleasure of this clandestine meeting?" His tone was devoid of warmth, a carefully neutral query that held 1,000 unspoken questions, a challenge hidden within the politeness. I took a steadying breath, clinging to the practiced calm I had cultivated. "Mr. Vance," I began, my voice clear, even, projecting an air of quiet determination that belied my internal turmoil. I met his gaze directly, allowing no hint of nervousness to betray me. "I've come to offer you a proposition, one that I believe will be mutually beneficial, particularly in regards to Ascendant Corp." I watched for any reaction, any tell, but his face remained a mask of controlled neutrality. His lips, thin and unsmiling, curved into the barest hint of the smirk. It was a fleeting expression, quickly suppressed, but I saw it. "Ascendant Corp, you say? A formidable opponent. And you, Miss Alden, are its CEO's fiancée. This adds a certain flavor to our conversation." His gaze sharpened, boring into me, seeking weakness, or perhaps hidden strength. He seemed to be weighing the implications of my statement, calculating the potential risks and rewards. "Indeed," I replied, my voice steady, my resolve unwavering. "My unique position grants me access, Mr. Vance. Access to information that could be highly valuable in your ongoing endeavors." I paused, allowing the implication to hang in the air, allowing him to connect the dots, to understand the depth of my access and the nature of my betrayal. The silence stretched, pregnant with unspoken possibilities. He leaned forward slightly, his eyes narrowing, the storm clouds in them seeming to deepen. "And what, precisely, is your interest in seeing Ascendant Corp falter, Miss Alden? A lover's spat? A desire for corporate espionage of your own?" His skepticism was a tangible force, a challenge laid bare. He was testing my motives, probing for any weakness in my story. I knew I had to be utterly transparent about my reasons, for a man like Vance would sniff out any pretense. "Neither," I stated, my voice hardening, a cold edge replacing the practiced neutrality. My composure, so meticulously maintained, faltered slightly as the raw truth escaped. "Luther Thorne is a criminal, Mr. Vance. He built his empire on fraud, embezzlement, and the deliberate ruin of innocent lives. He framed me for his crimes, intending for me to rot in prison while he married his lover and solidified his ill-gotten gains." My voice was steady, betraying none of the raw pain that still festered beneath the surface, but the intensity of my gaze, I hoped, conveyed the depth of my conviction. "I spent 2 years in a living hell, paying for his sins. I am here for justice, Mr. Vance, for retribution, and for the complete and utter annihilation of everything he holds dear." The words, once a silent scream in my heart, were now spoken aloud, cold and precise. The air in the room seemed to crackle with an unseen energy. Sebastian Vance's expression remained impassive, but a flicker, barely perceptible, passed through his storm-colored eyes. It wasn't pity or surprise, but a glint of recognition, perhaps even a hint of something akin to admiration. He was a man who understood vengeance, who spoke its language fluently. He saw not a wronged woman seeking solace, but a formidable force fueled by a powerful, righteous anger. He was assessing not just my words, but the steel behind them. "A compelling narrative, Miss Alden," he finally murmured, his voice softer, yet still dangerously calm. It was a voice that acknowledged the weight of my words. But narratives, however compelling, require proof, evidence. What exactly do you bring to the table besides a personal vendetta? His challenge was direct, unyielding. He wanted substance, not just emotion. I reached into my bag, pulling out a slim, encrypted USB drive. My fingers were steady, despite the tremor in my soul. "This contains a fraction of what I've collected so far, Mr. Vance. Copies of falsified contracts, forged financial statements, encrypted communications detailing money laundering schemes, and perhaps most damning, a detailed account of how he manipulated the evidence to frame me." My voice was laced with an undeniable conviction, a quiet fury that resonated in the hushed room. "This is not merely personal, Mr. Vance. This is a matter of dismantling a criminal enterprise. And if you wish to truly conquer Ascendant Corp., you will need to expose its rotten core." I slid it across the dusty surface of the table, watching his storm-colored eyes, silently urging him to understand the gravity of what I was offering. He took the USB drive, his fingers brushing mine for a fleeting moment. A strange, almost electric current passed between us, a spark of recognition, a silent acknowledgement of the dangerous game we were both playing. He didn't immediately plug it in, didn't outwardly react beyond the slight narrowing of his eyes. He merely held it, his gaze once again fixed on me, a silent, intense scrutiny that felt as if he was stripping away every layer of my being, searching for a flaw, a lie. "You are playing a dangerous game, Miss Alden," he stated, his voice a low warning, almost a test. "If what you say is true, Luther Thorne will stop at nothing to silence you, and associating with me that will only magnify the risks." He was not trying to dissuade me, but to gauge my resolve, to ensure I fully understood the treacherous path I was choosing. "I am well aware of the risks, Mr. Vance," I replied, my gaze unwavering, my resolve hardening, refusing to flinch under his intense scrutiny. "I have already lost everything once. I have nothing left to fear. I will see Luther Thorne ruined, even if it costs me my life. But with your resources, your influence, your ruthlessness, I believe we can ensure his downfall without incurring further personal cost to myself." My words were a veiled plea, a calculated gamble. I was offering him a shortcut, a way to dismantle his rival from the inside, a surgical strike that would leave him victorious without a drawn-out, messy corporate war. I laid my vulnerability bare, but wrapped it in an unyielding determination. Sebastian Vance leaned back in his chair, his gaze unreadable, the barest hint of a smile touching his lips. It was not a warm smile, but a predator's assessment, a silent acknowledgement of a worthy adversary. "Interesting, Miss Alden. Very interesting indeed." He paused, his gaze sweeping over me, as if committing every detail to memory, cataloging my every reaction. "Consider me cautiously intrigued. My team will review this data. We will be in touch." He gave a curt nod, a dismissal, but one laden with unspoken promise. The meeting concluded with a terse nod, a silent agreement. As I walked out of the Crimson Lotus, the cool evening air washing over my heated face, a sense of profound relief, mingled with a tremor of trepidation, washed over me. The first hurdle was cleared. I had stepped into the lion's den, laid bare my soul, and found, not a devourer, but a potential ally. Sebastian Vance was a dangerous man, a force of nature, but his ruthlessness was precisely what I needed. He would be my blade, sharp and unyielding, to cut through the intricate web of lies Luther had woven. The game had truly begun, and the stakes had never been higher. I hailed a cab, the city lights blurring into streaks as I sped away, leaving the Crimson Lotus and the silent judgment of Sebastian Vance behind me, but carrying the heavy weight of our new, dangerous alliance. The weeks that followed my initial meeting with Sebastian Vance were a constant tightrope walk, a delicate balance between playing the doting fiancée and secretly working towards Luther's destruction. The pressure was immense, a suffocating weight that threatened to crush me at times. Every casual touch from Luther, every affectionate word, felt like a burning brand against my skin. I continued my covert operations within Ascendant Corp, gathering more data, digging deeper into Luther's illicit dealings. Every seemingly innocent question to an unsuspecting colleague, every late night spent sifting through digital files, every whispered phone call to a discreet contact was a calculated move in my intricate game. I became a master of subterfuge, my public persona a seamless mask, while beneath my mind whirred, analyzing, planning, executing. My communication with Sebastian was sporadic, always discreet, often through encrypted messages and untraceable burner phones. He was a man of few words, his instructions concise, his feedback succinct. He would simply send a single word, validated, after I provided a new batch of evidence, or insufficient if a particular lead wasn't fruitful enough. There was no warmth, no pleasantries, only the cold, hard reality of our shared objective. His presence, even indirectly, was a constant reminder of the high stakes, the ruthless world I had willingly plunged into. His silence was often more unsettling than any explicit instruction, demanding absolute precision and unwavering dedication on my part. I learned to anticipate his needs, to provide not just raw data, but contextual analysis, anticipating the questions he hadn't even asked yet. Our unspoken understanding grew with each exchange, a silent language of strategy and ambition. One particularly stressful evening, Luther came home with an infuriatingly smug smile plastered across his face. He had just closed a major deal, expanding Ascendant Corp's reach into a lucrative overseas market, a deal I knew, from my previous life, was riddled with illegal kickbacks and shell companies, a classic example of his fraudulent expansion. "Raine, my dear," he purred, wrapping an arm around my waist, pulling me close. His scent, a mix of expensive cologne and something subtly cloying, made my stomach churn, a bitter taste rising in my throat. Celebrate with me. Another victory for Ascendant, another step closer to our glorious future. His words were a sickening blend of possessiveness and condescension, a grating symphony of self-importance. I forced a radiant smile to my lips, my hand resting lightly on his arm, feigning genuine excitement. "Of course, Luther, darling. Your success is always a cause for celebration." The words felt like sandpaper on my tongue, each syllable a lie. "Tell me all about it. The details, the intricacies. I'm always so fascinated by your brilliance." My feigned adoration was a potent lure, a mirror reflecting his own inflated ego, encouraging him to boast, to reveal. He chuckled, a self-satisfied sound, completely oblivious to the double meaning behind my words. He launched into a lengthy, self-congratulatory monologue, detailing the finer points of the deal, unknowingly revealing crucial information about the network of offshore accounts and the shadowy intermediaries he Kabbalah used. He spoke of clandestine meetings in Geneva, of numbered accounts in obscure island nations, of perfectly laundered funds. I listened intently, my mind a steel trap, meticulously filing away every name, every date, every hidden detail. It was agonizing, forcing myself to endure his narcissistic boasting, to nod along as he painted a picture of his genius, but every word he spoke was a nail in his coffin, hammered in by his own hubris. The emotional toll was immense, each moment spent in his presence, a battle against overwhelming disgust, but the ultimate prize, his utter ruin, kept me anchored. Later that night, feigning a sudden migraine, a tactic I had perfected for my covert operations, I excused myself to our shared study, a room filled with his opulent, self-important Dacre, every object A, testament to his ill-gotten gains. My fingers flew across the keyboard, recording every piece of information, cross-referencing it with existing files, verifying every name and account number he had so casually divulged. I noted the specific legal loopholes he exploited, the names of the crooked lawyers and accountants involved, the shell companies and fake transactions. This was the raw, unadulterated truth of his corruption, laid bare by his own unwitting hand. The adrenaline coursed through me, a cold fire sharpening my focus. As I finished, a new message from Sebastian popped up on the encrypted channel. Meet me, Old Warehouse, Dock 7, midnight, alone. The curtness of the message sent a shiver down my spine. This wasn't a casual update. This was a crucial turning point, a summons to the final battlefield. He was ready to move. The warehouse was a skeletal structure, its corrugated iron walls rusting, its interior filled with the metallic tang of dampness and disuse. Shadows clung to every corner, swallowing the faint moonlight that filtered through grimy windows, creating an almost oppressive atmosphere. Sebastian Vance stood silhouetted against a single bare light bulb, his figure imposing, almost menacing. He wasn't alone. A small team of his enforcers, silent and watchful, flanked him, their presence a stark reminder of the dangerous world I was now operating in, the lethal power he commanded. Their faces were grim, their postures alert, like silent sentinels guarding a dangerous secret. "You're late," he stated, his voice flat, devoid of emotion, yet carrying an unmistakable edge of impatience. It was not a question, but a statement of fact, a subtle assertion of control. I had to ensure my departure went unnoticed. I replied, my voice calm, projecting a confidence I didn't entirely feel, but one I knew I needed to maintain. My gaze flickered to the figures lurking in the shadows, their eyes like predatory gleams, assessing my every move. They were his silent judgment. He gestured to a small, worn table in the center of the vast, empty space. "The information, all of it, everything you have." His voice was a low command, unwavering. I produced another USB drive, this one considerably larger, denser, with months of painstaking collection, years of his intricate deceit compiled into a tiny device. "This contains everything, Mr. Vance. The complete financial fraud, the embezzlement trail, the shell corporations, the falsified records, the money laundering network, and direct evidence of how he framed me. Witness testimonies, corroborated by financial transactions, his entire criminal enterprise laid bare." My voice was laced with an undeniable conviction, a quiet fury, that resonated in the echoing silence of the vast warehouse. "It's all there, enough to send him away for life, and unravel Ascendant Corp from its very foundations." I slid it across the dusty surface, watching his storm-colored eyes, waiting for his reaction, the recognition of the sheer weight of what I was offering. He picked up the drive, his gaze unwavering, his expression unreadable. "This is a significant risk, Miss Alden. You're exposing yourself to extreme danger. Luther Thorne is not a man who tolerates betrayal. He will come for you." His voice was a low warning, a stark reminder of the potential consequences. "I am aware," I replied, my voice firm, resolute, refusing to waver. "But I have no intention of waiting for him to discover my true intentions. I believe it is time to accelerate our timeline. He plans to merge Ascendant Corp with a major international conglomerate, a deal that will solidify his power beyond reach. We need to act before that happens." My words were precise, highlighting the urgency, the critical window of opportunity that was rapidly closing. Sebastian Vance remained silent for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the USB drive, as if weighing its immense contents, assessing the full scope of the quote, information, the strategic implications. Then, slowly, a subtle shift occurred in his demeanor. The predatory glint in his eyes intensified, not with suspicion, but with a cold, focused intent. He was no longer just cautiously intrigued. He was committed. The corners of his lips quirked upward, a ghost of a smile, acknowledging my daring and foresight. "You are a remarkably resourceful woman, Miss Alden," he finally said, his voice a low, almost reluctant acknowledgement, tinged with a grudging respect, more than I anticipated. "Your resolve, it is truly commendable." He paused, his gaze sweeping over me, a silent assessment, as if seeing me for the first time, not as a victim, but as a formidable ally. "Very well. We proceed. The merger date is in 2 weeks. We will hit him from every angle: corporate espionage charges, financial fraud investigations, and, of course, the reopening of your case." He looked at me, a dangerous glint in his eyes, a promise of impending destruction. "You will be cleared. He will be ruined. And Ascendant Corp will be mine."
A cold thrill ran down my spine, mingled with a profound sense of satisfaction. It was happening. The years of quiet suffering, the months of meticulous planning, were finally culminating in this moment. The bitter seeds of betrayal were about to bear fruit, and his pride, Mr. Vance, I added, a chilling whisper in the echoing warehouse, my voice laced with a venomous satisfaction. I want his pride shattered. I want him to know it was me. I want him to understand that the woman he dismissed as a fool brought his empire to its knees. Sebastian Vance's lips curved into a slow, chilling smile, a predator's acknowledgement of a shared hunger. "Oh, he'll know, Miss Alden. He will know." The air in the warehouse seemed to vibrate with unspoken promises of devastation. The next 2 weeks were a blur of intense activity, a coordinated assault on Luther's empire. I continued to play my role, a demure, loving fiancée, all the while feeding Sebastian's team real-time updates, anticipating Luther's moves, subtly undermining his efforts. My days were a symphony of deception, my nights a blur of adrenaline-fueled plotting. I attended wedding planning meetings with Serafina, listening to her gush about arrangements, all while mentally calculating how much time we had left before the hammer fell. I'd offer seemingly helpful advice to Luther on the merger, knowing each piece of advice was a carefully placed piece of sabotage. The approaching merger date was a ticking time bomb, and I was holding the detonator. The game was in its final, deadly stages, and I was ready to claim my victory. The anticipation was a constant hum beneath my skin, a potent mix of fear and exhilaration. The day of the merger, a date that Luther had anticipated with barely contained glee, dawned under a sky as gray and heavy as my heart. The weather reflected the storm brewing beneath the surface of the city's corporate facade. The grand ballroom of the city's most prestigious hotel was a dazzling display of opulence, teeming with powerful investors, shrewd corporate lawyers, and a host of sycophantic hangers-on, all buzzing with anticipation. Ornate chandeliers cast a warm, deceptive glow, illuminating tables laden with expensive floral arrangements and glittering champagne flutes. Luther, impeccably dressed in a bespoke suit, moved through the crowd with an air of triumphant confidence, his arm possessively wrapped around my waist, his smile radiating arrogance, a shark in his element. Serafina, his true love, hovered nearby, draped in a designer gown, her eyes gleaming with a mixture of envy and anticipation, already tasting the spoils of Anita. Victory! Her artificial sweetness a stark contrast to the genuine malevolence in her gaze. I played my part flawlessly, a serene, supportive fiancé, my eyes wide with feigned admiration as he addressed his associates, nodding subtly at his every pronouncement. Every polite smile, every soft touch I offered him was a silent, venomous vow. Beneath the silken facade of my gown, my heart hammered, a frantic drumbeat of anticipation and a bray, simmering, righteous rage. The air was thick with the scent of expensive champagne, rare flowers, and the metallic tang of unspoken greed. Each polite conversation, each forced laugh, felt like another layer of the suffocating lie I had lived for so long. The merger ceremony began with pomp and circumstance, Luther delivering a self-congratulatory speech, his voice booming with unearned authority, filling the grand ballroom. He spoke of innovation, of vision, of a future he believed he had single-handedly forged, a legacy built on the backs of others. He projected an image of a benevolent titan. Completely unaware of the precipice he stood upon, my gaze drifted across the room, searching, waiting, my eyes scanning the faces, my heart pounding in my ears. And then I saw him, Sebastian Vance, a solitary, imposing figure at the back of the ballroom, almost blending into the shadows, yet undeniably present. His storm-colored eyes locked onto me, a subtle nod of acknowledgement passing between us, a silent signal that the final act was about to begin. The calm, almost imperceptible confirmation sent a jolt of ice through my veins, sharpening my focus, solidifying my resolve. As Luther raised a champagne, flute, ready to toast his grand success, his voice booming, to a prosperous future built on innovation and trust. A sudden commotion erupted near the entrance. The heavy, ornate doors swung open, revealing a phalanx of stern-faced federal agents, their badges glinting under the opulent chandeliers. Their expressions grim and unyielding. A collective gasp rippled through the room, the hushed murmurs giving way to stunned silence. The celebratory atmosphere instantly curdled into one of confusion and fear. Luther's triumphant smile faltered, his hand lowering the flute, a flicker of bewildered annoyance crossing his face, quickly replaced by a dawning panic. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, his voice laced with indignant disbelief, his carefully constructed composure beginning to crack under the sudden, unexpected pressure. This is preposterous. A lead agent, a woman with sharp, intelligent eyes and an unyielding demeanor, stepped forward. Her voice clear and authoritative, cutting through the stunned silence like a knife through silk. Luther Thorne, you are under arrest for multiple counts of corporate fraud, money laundering, embezzlement, and conspiracy to obstruct justice. Her voice echoed with the weight of law and undeniable authority. Chaos erupted. Gasps, shouts, the frantic whispers of terrified investors. The elegant veneer of the ballroom shattered. People scrambled, clutching their champagne flutes, murmuring amongst themselves. Luther's face drained of all color, turning ashen. His eyes wide with disbelief, then dawning horror. Arrest? This is preposterous. A misunderstanding. You have no evidence. He stammered, his voice rising in panic, his hand instinctively reaching for me, seeking a familiar anchor, a lifeline in the swirling vortex of his undoing. That I recoiled, my eyes cold, my mask finally falling away, revealing the raw, unyielding anger beneath. The innocent, naive fiancée was gone, obliterated by the fires of betrayal and rebirth, replaced by the woman he had wronged, the woman who had meticulously engineered his downfall. My voice, usually soft and demure, was now sharp, cutting, echoing through the suddenly silent ballroom, commanding attention. Actually, Luther, they have plenty of evidence. More than enough to put you away for a very, very long time. My tone was laced with a chilling sweetness, a mockery of the affection I had feigned for so long. His gaze snapped to me, his eyes widening in bewildered horror, then a dawning, sickening realization. The pieces clicked into place for him, the comprehension of my betrayal hitting him like a physical blow. Raine? What are you talking about? What have you done? His voice was a strangled whisper, a desperate plea for understanding, a stark contrast to his earlier booming confidence. I merely helped them collect the proof, darling, I said, my voice dripping with saccharine sweetness, a chilling mimicry of his own past endearments, a cruel echo of the lies he had fed me. All those little details you so kindly shared with your fascinated fiancé. All those innocent questions I asked. Every single one of them. A piece of the puzzle. Every single piece. A nail in your coffin. I held up a small, discreet digital recorder I had been wearing, its tiny red light blinking, a silent, damning witness. And every single confession you made, caught perfectly on tape. Remember our little talks about the offshore accounts? About how easy it was to manipulate the market. About how you could make any asset disappear? All of it, Luther. Every damning word. I watched his face closely, savoring the moment, the dawning horror in his eyes. His jaw dropped, his face contorting into a mask of pure, unadulterated horror and disbelief. He looked from me to the federal agents, then back to me, a profound, agonizing betrayal dawning in his eyes. He lunged, a desperate, animalistic roar tearing from his throat, fueled by rage and desperation. But the agents were swift, seizing him, their hands clamping down on his wrists, cuffing him with a sharp click that resonated through the shocked silence. Serafina, who had been silently observing the unfolding drama with a growing sense of dread, let out a piercing shriek, her perfectly manicured hand flying to her mouth. Luther! What is happening? Raine, you scheming witch. You conniving snake. She tried to rush forward, her face contorted in a mixture of fury and despair, but was held back by one of the hotel's security personnel, who quickly restrained her, pulling her away from the chaos. I met her gaze, a cold, triumphant smile gracing my lips, devoid of any warmth. Oh, Seraphina. You always were so quick to embrace the spoils, weren't you? So eager to step into my life? Enjoy your future, dear. I'm sure it will be exactly what you deserve. A life without his ill-gotten gains. Perhaps a life of quiet desperation. My eyes, hard and unyielding, reflected the years of pain she had caused, the mockery of my suffering, the smug superiority she had always radiated. Now it was her turn to taste bitterness. As Luther was led away, his face pale, utterly defeated, his eyes still fixed on me with a look of utter, agonizing devastation, a silent plea for understanding that would never come, I felt a profound sense of catharsis, a liberation that reverberated through every fiber of my being. He was losing everything, his freedom, his reputation, grande, ill-gotten empire, and he knew, unequivocally, that it was I, the woman he had so cruelly discarded, who had orchestrated his spectacular downfall. His pride, the very core of his inflated ego, was shattering into a million irreparable pieces. The sight of his brokenness was not a joyous one, but a deeply satisfying one, a testament to the power of a wronged woman. The lead agent approached me, a look of quiet respect in her eyes. Miss Alden, your testimony, coupled with the comprehensive evidence you provided, has been instrumental. It's rare to see such meticulous preparation. You will be fully exonerated. Your name will be cleared, and your past conviction will be formally expunged. Her words were formal, professional, but carried a distinct undertone of admiration. I nodded, a sense of weary satisfaction settling over me. The public humiliation, the clearing of my name, was a vital first step, a necessary cleansing of my public identity. But my vengeance was not yet complete. The company, Ascendant Corp., the very heart of Luther's ambition, was still a dangling prize, ripe for the taking. As the commotion slowly subsided, the crowd of investors and lawyers began to disperse, their whispers frantic, their faces etched with shock and apprehension. The air still hummed with the aftershocks of the revelation, and then Sebastian Vance emerged from the shadows of the back of the room, his presence now undeniable, a quiet force of nature surveying the wreckage. He walked towards me, his storm-colored eyes meeting mine, a flicker of something gray, akin to victory, perhaps even a hint of respect, passing between us, a silent acknowledgement of a battle well fought. An impressive performance, Miss Alden, he said, his voice a low, smooth purr, devoid of its usual coldness, now tinged with a subtle warmth, a shared triumph, a rare hint of approval. Your work has been invaluable. Ascendant Corp is now ripe for the taking, and with Luther Thorne's reputation utterly destroyed, its stock will plummet. The board will be desperate for a new leader, a figure of strength and stability, someone to salvage what remains and rebuild trust. He paused, his gaze sweeping over the chaotic ballroom, then back to me, a silent question in his eyes. He was offering me the next step, the final piece of my grand revenge, the crown jewel of Luther's shattered empire. He understood my ultimate desire, even without words. I met his gaze, my lips curving into a slow, confident smile. The naive Raine Alden was truly gone, obliterated by the fires of betrayal and rebirth, purged from my very being. Then let's take it, Mr. Vance, I declared, my voice firm, resolute, echoing with a newfound authority, a steel that had been forged in the crucible of suffering. Let's ensure that Ascendant Corp., once a monument to his greed and deceit, becomes the cornerstone of my rebirth. Let's make sure that everything he built, everything he coveted, becomes mine, and that his legacy is nothing but the shadow of my triumph." Sebastian Vance's smile deepened, a rare, genuine curve of his lips, a chilling camaraderie in his eyes. It was a silent acknowledgement of a new partnership, a mutual understanding of ambition and power, a bond forged in the fires of vengeance. The path to my full reclaiming was clear, illuminated by the wreckage of Luther Thorne's shattered world. He had sent me to prison to marry her. Reborn, I had let him have her, and in doing so, I had taken everything he had ever held dear: his company, his freedom, and his pride, and I had gained something far more valuable: myself. The future was mine to command, and I faced it with an unyielding spirit, a testament to the power of a woman reborn. The acquisition of Ascendant Corp was swift and decisive, a corporate coup orchestrated with ruthless precision by Sebastian Vance's team, fueled by the devastating evidence I had provided. Luther Thorne's arrest had sent shockwaves through the corporate world, plunging Ascendant Corp's stock into freefall. The very foundation of his illicit empire, Keen, crumbled as investor confidence evaporated like mist in the morning sun. The board of directors, desperate to salvage what little remained, was eager for a new leader, someone with the acumen to stabilize the crumbling empire and restore some semblance of legitimacy. Sebastian, with his unparalleled influence and strategic brilliance, leveraged the situation perfectly, publicly endorsed me, citing my unjust persecution and unwavering resolve, painting me as a victim turned formidable leader, a narrative he carefully crafted to sway public opinion and secure investor confidence. He presented me not just as a survivor, but as a visionary, a phoenix rising from the ashes, capable of leading the company into a new ethical era. The media, always hungry for a sensational story, devoured it whole. My face, once plastered on headlines as a disgraced criminal, now adorned magazine covers as a phoenix rising from the ashes, a symbol of resilience and vindication. Talk shows clamored for interviews. Financial analysts debated my strategies, and my story became a testament to overcoming adversity. The legal system, under pressure from Sebastian's powerful connections and the irrefutable evidence, quickly moved to clear my name. The conviction was overturned, expunged from my record, and an official apology was issued by the state, acknowledging the grave miscarriage of justice. It was a hollow victory in some ways, as no apology could erase the psychological scars of those 2 years, the stolen moments, the lost dreams. But it was a crucial step in reclaiming my public identity, in shedding the last vestiges of Luther's poisoned legacy. The whispers of criminal were replaced by murmurs of resilience and power. Within weeks, I was installed as the new CEO of Ascendant Corp. The first day in my new office, Luther's former sanctuary, was a surreal experience. The polished mahogany desk, the panoramic city views stretching out beneath me, the subtle scent of his lingering presence, it all felt like a ghost of a past life, now entirely subsumed by my new reality. I sat in his chair, feeling the weight of the company and the weight of my victory, settling upon me like a regal mantle. My hands, once trembling with silent rage and despair, now gripped the armrests with a calm, unwavering resolve. I ran my fingers over the smooth, cool surface of the desk, a silent acknowledgement of the monumental shift in power. This was no longer his domain. It was mine, and I would reshape it in my image. Sebastian Vance became my silent partner, a formidable force whose counsel was invaluable. He didn't seek public recognition, preferring to operate from the shadows, a master puppeteer pulling strings unseen, but his influence was undeniable. He shared his vast network, his strategic insights, and his ruthless pragmatism, guiding me through the complex labyrinth of corporate politics, teaching me the unspoken rules of this high-stakes game. Our relationship was strictly professional, built on mutual respect and a shared understanding of power dynamics. There was no personal intimacy, only the stark reality of our alliance, a partnership forged in the fires of ambition and revenge. He was my mentor in the art of corporate warfare, helping me hone the skills I would need to not just run Ascendant Corp, but to dominate its competitors, to reshape the industry itself. His quiet nods of approval, or his terse, insightful critiques, became invaluable lessons. My first order of business was a ruthless purge. Every individual complicit in Luther's schemes, every executive who had turned a blind eye to his corruption, every lawyer who had aided in my framing, was systematically removed. I cleaned house with surgical precision, leaving no trace of the rot that had festered within. Some offered pleas, others threats, but I met them all with an unyielding gaze and a cold dismissal. I replaced them with a new team, loyal and competent, individuals who valued integrity and ambition, who understood that this new Ascendant Corp would operate by a different, ethical code. I meticulously dismantled the fraudulent financial structures, severing ties with the illicit networks Luther had cultivated, untangling the complex web of deceit he had spun. It was a painstaking process, but with each layer of corruption peeled away, Ascendant Corp began to shed its tarnished past and emerge, slowly, into a new era of legitimacy, a company reborn alongside its new CEO. The air in the offices seemed lighter, cleaner, free from the lingering stench of greed and fear. The company, once an edifice of deceit, became my project, my canvas for rebirth. I restructured its divisions, injected fresh capital, and refocused its mission towards ethical practices and sustainable growth. I poured my energy into its transformation, finding a profound sense of purpose in building something genuinely valuable, something that stood in stark contrast to the rotten foundation Luther had laid. It was a form of therapy, a way to channel the lingering bitterness and trauma into something productive, something powerful. Each success, each new ethical partnership, each positive quarterly report was a quiet victory, a testament to my resilience and newfound strength. The company's growth was a mirror to my own personal evolution. One afternoon, a letter arrived, forwarded by Sebastian's legal team from the prison. It was from Luther, his handwriting shaky, uneven, filled with a desperate, pathetic plea. He begged for mercy, for understanding, for a chance at redemption. He claimed he had been misled, manipulated, that he had never truly intended for me to suffer. He even spoke of his regret, of his desire to somehow make amends, to reconcile. He mentioned memories of our past, twisting them into sentimental appeals, trying to evoke a phantom of the woman I once was. It was a sickening display of his inherent cowardice, his inability to face the consequences of his own actions, a desperate attempt to manipulate, even from behind bars. I read the letter in my opulent office, the city sprawling beneath me, a testament to my power, to the vast chasm that now separated our realities. The sun streamed through the large windows, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air, a stark contrast to the dim, oppressive light of his cell. I crumpled the paper in my hand, feeling no pity, no compassion, only a cold, stark satisfaction. He had reaped what he had sown. He had gambled everything on my destruction, and he had lost. His words were empty, hollow echoes of a man stripped bare, devoid of the power he once held. A pathetic wail from the depths of his self-created hell. I instructed my assistant to discard the letter and ensure no further communication from him reached me. He was a ghost of my past, a shadow I had long since outrun, a faded memory of a pain I no longer allowed to define me. Serafina Hayes, too, faded into obscurity, stripped of Luther's wealth and influence, exposed as a co-conspirator through the ongoing legal proceedings. She lost everything. Her lavish lifestyle crumbled, her social standing evaporated. Her name became synonymous with scandal, a cautionary tale. I heard rumors of her desperate attempts to regain her former glory, of her bitter complaints, her petty grievances, but I paid them no mind. She was no longer a threat, merely a pathetic footnote in my journey, another casualty of Luther's downfall, a weed withered by the harsh light of truth. Her suffering, though not directly sought, was a natural consequence of her own venomous choices. The final piece of my transformation came when I faced myself, truly, honestly, in the quiet solitude of my new life. The Raine Alden who had entered prison was naive, trusting, and ultimately a victim of circumstance and betrayal. She was fragile, easily manipulated. The Raine Alden who emerged was sharp, calculating, and undeniably ruthless when necessary. She was a survivor, a strategist, a force to be reckoned with. The pain of the past would always be a part of me, a deep-seated scar, a constant reminder of the darkness I had faced, but it no longer defined me. It had forged me into something stronger, something unbreakable, a woman tempered by fire and purified by resolve. The bitterness had transmuted into an unyielding drive, the grief into an enduring strength. I looked at my reflection in the polished glass of my office window, the city lights twinkling behind me like countless stars, a vast, complex tapestry of human ambition and struggle. My eyes, once filled with a childlike innocence and a trusting gaze, now held a steely resolve, a quiet power, a flicker of hard-earned wisdom. My lips, once quick to smile with naive delight, now curved into a confident, knowing smirk, a silent testament to the battles won. I had not just reclaimed my name, I had redefined it. I was no longer merely Raine Alden. I was the CEO, the victor, the architect of my own destiny. My relationship with Sebastian Vance remained strictly professional, though an unspoken understanding, a shared acknowledgement of the darkness and ambition within us, simmered beneath the surface. We were two complex individuals, each driven by our own motives, finding common ground in the pursuit of power and control. He was a constant, formidable presence, a shadow ally who respected my boundaries and my newfound power, never overstepping, always supportive in his own taciturn way. We were two forces of nature, irrevocably linked by a common enemy and a shared pursuit of influence, building separate but intertwined empires. There was a quiet strength in our alliance, a powerful synergy. My life was no longer about vengeance, though its sweet taste lingered like a victory wine, a lingering aftertaste of triumph. It was about building, about shaping my own destiny, about proving that from the deepest betrayal, the greatest strength could emerge. Luther Thorne had sent me to prison to marry her, believing he had broken me beyond repair, believing he had written the final, tragic chapter of my life. He was wrong. Reborn, I had let him have her, and in doing so, I had taken everything he had ever held dear, his company, his freedom, and his pride, and I had gained something far more valuable, myself, whole and unyielding, tempered by fire, and ready to face whatever the future held. The future was mine to command, and I faced it with an unyielding spirit, a testament to the power of a woman reborn, a legend in the making,